Did the Dallas Cowboys make the right selection in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, what's going on, sir?
I'm still recovering from that tease that you just did on the questions up front. So I'm good. It's Friday. We got a Monday night game. I was just talking to you about how fun it is when the Cowboys play off Sundays, right? Because it allows you a rare opportunity to watch Sunday football without kind of any, creeping, impending stress. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but I'm also certainly looking forward to talking Cowboys today.
Yeah, I mean, and you know how excited I am coming off a Steelers loss on Thursday. This is the perfect way to start a football weekend. But we're gonna get to some of your Twitter questions, and you guys have some really good ones, including this one from Connor. Let me back up. Let me tell you what happened. So
let me put my drink down so I don't spit take all over the camera. All right.
So Pro Football Focus tweeted out some Micah Parsons stats from the first 2 weeks, including 0 missed tackles, 4 sacks, a 22% pressure percentage. And I quote tweeted and said, generational. Somebody underneath kind of sarcastically asking, maybe said, so Marcus, who would you choose now? Rashawn, Slater, or Micah Parsons? And I think it's really easy to just brush off this question and say Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons might be the best player in the NFL. Truly, he really might be. But I think it's closer than what you think. So I'm going to ask you, Landon, did the Cowboys make the right pick in 2021?
I think that this is a very tough worded question because
it's not. I mean, neither pick is wrong, right? Did they make the best pick?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah. I mean, I think that I can understand the argument that you can make that Rashawn Slater, especially if it turns out to be, the best tackle in football, which, look, there's nothing I haven't seen in it so far that indicates that he couldn't do that. I can understand.
Last 6 games, he has allowed 7 pressures.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand like that argument. I think Micah Parsons is one of the best football players I've ever seen in a Cowboys uniform. I don't know.
Me, I mean, doesn't this feel like J.J. Watt versus Tyron Smith kind of over again, right? Where neither choice is the wrong one. Now, instead of the Cowboys having the dominant cornerstone left tackle, they just might have the best defensive player in the league, right?
I'm a big Marvel fan, and I love what if, I love the idea of, what if this was different? And what if, I think that this is one of those situations that, you couldn't go wrong. If you pick Slater or Parsons, you're probably pretty thrilled with your decision. I think for the Cowboys, Micah Parsons is, on a Hall of Fame track. So it's hard to argue against the one they selected. I think for the Chargers, they would argue the same thing. It's hard to argue against who they select.
What you end up doing here is you're not having a discussion about players, right? You're having a discussion about positional value, right? Left tackle versus all-world pass rusher and what you value more. I've historically been somebody that just values protection a little bit more than pass rush. But in this case, I kind of think Dallas needed somebody like Micah Parsons on their defense to just give them a chance, right? But again,
I think there's an argument to be made that a left tackle is part of a protection scheme, and a truly generational pass rusher like Parsons can by himself destroy a pass rush scheme. So,
I just want to be clear. There's absolutely no way you can argue that the Cowboys made a bad or a wrong pick here.
Yeah.
It's just what do you believe long term better sets you up for success? Is it a dominant edge rusher or is it a dominant left tackle? We can have debates about this all day.
Yeah,
Just be really
ultimately,
happy the Cowboys got Micah.
Ultimately, this is not a conversation about those two players. It's about positional value and what you value in your football team. So.
100%. All right, let's get to some more questions that actually have to do with things that really matter, because that one does it. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Brightco. I've told the story here a couple different times about my friend who was on the Ferris wheel that lost the engagement ring. You don't want to be that guy, and you certainly don't want to be splattered all over the internet. Luckily, he wasn't, which is great. The guys at Brightco Jewelry Insurance will make sure that you get a replacement for the full value of that ring, no matter if it's lost, stolen, dropped, or you just can't figure out what happened to it. Go to bright.co/locked on. It's the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jewelry insurance in the business. These guys at Brightco are geniuses. They've made buying insurance for your engagement ring, your watch, or whatever so freaking easy. It only takes 2 minutes from your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on great coverage that's super affordable. Bright.co/locked on. We all hate insurance. We hate the whole buying process, but they've made it easy. No excuses. $5 a month for the most comprehensive coverage, and it won't take you more than 2 minutes on your cell phone. Check it out. Bright.co/locked on. All right, let's get to some other questions, Landon. People want to know about Dorrance Armstrong. Why aren't we talking more about Dorrance Armstrong after getting 2 sacks against the Bengals in week 2?
Yeah, I think it's there's so much conversation about what Micah did, and I think that there's just a lot more gravity to have discussion to the higher profile player. I think Dorrance had kind of an up and down week 1.
Yeah.
And then last week obviously played very good football. So, I think, as a fan base, we're still getting used to Dorrance Armstrong as being a player that gets a lot of playing time and is a starter and that sort of thing. So I think if he continues to play the way that he's been playing, he's going to garner more attention. I definitely agree with whoever's questioning that he deserves some more conversation because I think he's played well. He played well in this game. And if he continues to kind of play at that level, he could really turn out to be a huge piece for this defense.
Yeah, he had a 21.7% win rate in week 2. Just to put that in perspective, in case you're not familiar, like anything over 18 is great. Anything over 20 is like we're starting to get into the Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett range. It's really good. It definitely bounced back from a slower week 1. He's not going to do that every week, but if he can kind of hover in that 17-ish range, Cowboys are going to be just fine.
Absolutely. And he could do a little bit more than your traditional defensive end too. So he really helps with a lot of the versatility of the scheme because he can be a guy that can drop into a zone if you need him to. He can be a guy who can stand up and kind of play some outside linebacker, that kind of role if you needed him to. So it's not even just that he's just a full-time pass rusher. So his numbers may be kind of a little bit wonky looking because he ends up doing a lot of different stuff to kind of facilitate the movement around the defense for people like Micah Parsons and the rest.
Yeah, he's the type of player you need so you can have a versatile Micah Parsons, right? You need kind of these, I don't know if glue guy is the right word, but just these guys.
Utility guys, right? They can fill the role that is vacated by Parsons when he moves from one spot to the other, right?
Yes. And not have a huge drop off. There's going to be a big drop off, but don't have it where you're just putting a scrub on the other side. That's not what you want. All right. Next one. This one from @Ditto Cardona. He wants to know, with the Bengals game in the books, what is your confidence level with Cooper Rush at quarterback?
I think it's going to be game to game. This is about what defense they're facing. Schemes make fights, and especially when you're talking about your styles. It's the actual phrase is styles make fights, but in the NFL, it's schemes make fights. Mm-hmm. And I think that without Dak Prescott, when you're talking about a backup quarterback, that goes even more so, right? Like a backup quarterback's opportunities and chances and likelihood of a win is going to ride the roller coaster of who you're playing on the schedule that week. Mm-hmm. This week we're playing the Giants. They have some weaknesses that the Cowboys are going to be able to exploit. They are going to get some of their young pass rushers back. but they are coming off of injuries. They'll be their first week back. I tend to think that the Cowboys are probably going to want to continue the same game plan that they did with the Bengals. They're going to want to run the football, especially with Leonard Williams out and with these kind of coming off injury pass rush edge guys, both of which who are a little bit light in Ojulari and Thibodeau. I think you're going to run right at them. And I think that's going to continue to open things up for Cooper to not have to throw the ball 40 times to win. I think that's really the key is not that throwing the football can't win against the Giants. I think it can. I think they need to throw the ball aggressively to win. But I think that the more chance that you get, how do I phrase this? The more chances that you get to put Cooper back there to drop back to pass, I think the more opportunity for something to go wrong there is, right?
Well, we saw it last week. There was probably 4 drop picks in that game, right? And I just worry about against the Giants with Wink Martindale just being a crazy man. He's going to blitz guys like crazy all game long. And that's where things can go poorly. If this was Dak behind center, I would feel great about this matchup, right? Like Dak crushes the blitz, and I think the Cowboys have a huge matchup at receiver, with CeeDee Lamb and maybe Michael Gallup getting back. Their defensive backs aren't good, but with Rush, I agree. I actually think this is a game where I would love to see the Cowboys just pound the crap out of the ball and, basically really lean on your defense in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really, really important that, the complementary football is going to be a huge part of in all of these games while Dak is out. Yeah. So they're going to need the opportunity. Cooper Rush's job is to make sure that he takes full advantages of the time that they need him on third downs in the red zone. That's where he needs to step up and carry the torch there. I think for the rest of the game, you're just trying to keep putting Cooper Rush into good situations, whether that's keeping ahead of the chains on offense or setting him up with good field position on defense and special teams. The rest of the team just needs to do what they can to support an offense that, it played better football last week, but it's still going to struggle these weeks without Dak.
A couple of people wanted to know kind of quickly before we move on. Have we not talked about the loss of Dalton Schultz enough with Cooper Rush playing in this game? If Dalton Schultz doesn't play, how much is that going to impact the offense?
I think it's going to have an impact. I mean, I think they really like these down roster tight ends. They like, obviously, what they have in Ferguson. They like what they have in Hendershot. McEwen's a guy that they'll call up from the practice squad who, as we've talked about, has experience and they've liked before as well. But obviously, Dalton Schultz is the key piece here. If he doesn't play, I think it has an effect on the Cowboys' ability to kind of control the middle of the field a little bit. Just reliably. But I do think that it doesn't necessarily affect their game plan. I think that they will continue to try to run a similar game plan just with the tight ends that they have. The efficiency or the ability to get open may have a little bit of a drop. But I think that as far as what they're trying to do, it probably won't have an effect. How efficient they will be at doing that through the tight ends, that's likely what will have.
I will say, if Dalton Schultz doesn't play in this game, I think this is a great opportunity to get Jason Peters active and have him be like the 6th offensive lineman and just use him like 10 times in this game, just to kind of get his feet wet, get him into this game and just try to like use him as an extra tight end basically. And just play that way. Like, I think you could beat the Giants by running the ball down their throat, especially without Leonard Williams. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys try to get a little bit bigger on the offensive line, bring an extra tackle in just to try to bully the Giants a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really wish McGovern was healthier, right?
So do I.
It really would give you an opportunity to play a little bit more of that kind of 6 offensive lineman packages, whether that's having a tight end offensive lineman as a tight end or having McGovern line up as fullback. Mm-hmm. I just think that would have really been effective this week, and maybe they still continue to do that. Maybe that's what they work with Peters, and maybe that's a good way to get Peters involved in getting some snaps early on, right? Is kind of have him come out. Obviously, he's plenty experienced playing tight end. I don't know if Jason Peters. Here's a good question, Marcus. Does Jason Peters have a reception touchdown in the NFL? Because
I thought he had one. I'm gonna double check right now.
Because I do think that is something that we should watch out for. I mean, this is a guy who I know he's 40 years old, but he's a former tight end. He played it in college. Was basically drafted as a tight end in the, well, not drafted, but brought into the NFL as a tight end. And the next thing you know, in Bill's camp, they're working him out as an offensive tackle. So he has the pedigree there.
He did catch a pass. He's got 2 passes in his career. 2005 with the Bills.
That's a long time ago.
Do you want to guess
17 years ago?
Do you want to guess who threw him the touchdown?
JP Lossman?
Ooh, it's not a bad guess. Do you want another guess?
Ken Dorsey?
It was JP Lossman.
Oh!
It was JP Lossman. Yeah, JP Lossman completed 7 passes in the game that he got his touchdown. So yeah, maybe. Wouldn't that be really fun? Jason Peters to score a touchdown on Monday Night Football. That'd be fantastic.
We got to go back and find that 2005 tape in which JP Lossman threw 7 passes and Jason Peters was one of the featured receivers. That sounds like a fun tape to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, against Vinny Testaverde. So there you go. That's how long it's been. All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all of your football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including NFL, NBA, MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, Landon, last question. This one from Zach. Do the Cowboys start looking to acquire new weapons for Dak Prescott via trade now that Cooper Rush has kind of kept them alive?
I think that they still need to see, how quickly they need to see exactly what the situation. I think they need to see a couple more games of this in general, not even just tied to that situation with the wide receiver. I think they need to see more of what Cooper could do with this offense. They need to see what Gallup looks like. I mean, I think we'll hopefully maybe get him for maybe a dozen snaps this week, hopefully,
at least on the field, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to see how quickly he needs to get back up to speed to be closer to something that we're used to with Gallup. I don't know what the status is of James Washington. I don't know that makes a difference to me, but that may make a difference to them. So if he's coming back sooner than later, then they may hold off. I don't know. I mean, looking at what's out there right now, if there's an available situation of an upgrade that's clear, that's a solid trade, then yeah, I would say that they could still obviously be interested in here. But I think you've seen a little bit from Noah Brown. You're hoping to get Gallup back. I think it's tough to try to trade for a wide receiver right now simply because of Dak's situation.
On top of that, obviously you're not trading for a wide receiver one because you have CeeDee Lamb. You've invested a ton of money into Michael Gallup, and you believe that now he's finally back on the field. So you're really talking about wide receiver 3. But remember, the Cowboys like Noah Brown. He's playing well. They drafted Jalen Tolbert. I think we'll eventually see him. So you're talking about trying to maybe get another body in there for your. You only do this if CeeDee Lamb.
It's an upgrade.
Yeah, or somebody gets hurt, right? That's the only way that you do this.
Yeah, I just don't think it's inevitable, at all. I think at this point you've seen enough out of Noah Brown to know that he can get you by as a wide receiver 2 in a situation if you need it. And you've got the guy that you paid just a lot of money to be your wide receiver 2 coming on the hoof. And I'd listen. I know people are down on Tolbert because he wasn't active these first 2 weeks. I'm not at all giving up on Tolbert. I've seen too much of him in training camp to believe that he doesn't have something. So I think he will eventually make his way into the lineup. And I think when he does, he's going to have a positive impact as well. So I would not at all be surprised if they're not, hugely scouring the trade deals to see what wide receivers there are available.
I mean, I think you could make a better case for go out and trade for a guard, but at the same time, I think Connor McGovern will be back in a few weeks. I mean, if Jason Peters starts to play, you always have the option of moving Tyler Smith back to left guard. I think at this point, you just wait. You wait and see what your team looks like over the next month. And if, let's say, defensive tackles continue to struggle or something like that, that's when you make a move. But
look, yeah, I think the quarterback injury is unpredicted, obviously, But all this other stuff that we were worried about preseason, about the depth or about, the quality, I mean, I think a lot of those questions have been answered in sort of positive manner. I mean, I think, like I said, the wide receiver situation, not as bad as we expected. I think Noah Brown kind of stepping up there and at least showing you that maybe you can get through this initial part of the early season until Gallup gets back and until Tolbert's ready. I think the offensive line, you saw a high level of play that you were hoping for Tyler Smith. You know that Jason Peters is waiting in the wings at some point, whether it's this week or the following week, to come in and either upgrade that situation or maybe shuffle it around a little bit. I think a lot of those conversations that we were having in the preseason in training camp, I think a lot of that kind of settled itself out.
Yep.
Much like the Cowboys thought it would, honestly.
We'll say that there's going to be things that happen between now and the trade deadline that are going to be more pressing, right? Like there's just not a need right now. So I think you want to keep your powder dry because
absolutely. Yeah.
What happens if, I don't know, let's say Leighton Vander Esch goes down, then you might need a linebacker, right? You might need to go out and trade for another quality linebacker. Or if Terrence Steele gets hurt, maybe that's when you need to go out and trade for a tackle. But just trading picks or whatever to go get another receiver to add to kind of a jumbled mess of receivers anyways, I don't know if that's really accomplishing a lot, right? Unless Landon, there's like a perfect fit, but tell me who that player is, because I don't see it.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that like most of the guys you're going to get off the street, they're going to be competing with guys that you already like and are younger and are cheaper. And then anybody that you're trading for, you're not trading unless they're going to be a top end wide receiver on your team. And you've already, committed money to one wide receiver and committed touches and opportunities to CeeDee Lamb. So, yeah, I don't really see a good fit necessarily.
Well, and I've seen like some people suggest like a Nelson Aguilar, who's a nice player, but he's making $9 million this year. I don't.
Why would you want $9 million to pay somebody $9 million to compete with the guy who probably was playing better than him is making $1 million?
Right. I mean, now somebody like Aguilar gives you a little bit more of a vertical threat, right? And that's the advantage. But at the same time, I'm not sure $9 million, especially playing with Cooper Rush, who doesn't really stretch the field vertically, makes sense. Same with Robbie Anderson. I think Robbie Anderson's making like $21 million over the next 2 years. It's all guaranteed. I just don't want any part of that right now.
No, I mean, if there's something that makes sense, then it makes sense. But we're kind of just generally talking about trading for a wide receiver. It's all about specifics, guys.
Yes.
Like, who's the player? How much is he making? What's it going to cost to trade for him?
Absolutely. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. And we want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back on Monday to preview the Cowboys Monday night game against the Giants. It's going to be a weird, fast week for us, considering the Cowboys have a quick turnaround. But make sure you're downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Landon at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. And we'll see you next time.